Hi everyone, thanks for joining in for today's masterclass. And today we are live on LinkedIn as well. And today it's a very important masterclass because we would be talking about how Singapore is helping Indian businesses and Indian business owners, especially tech business owners and business owners who are into deep tech and SaaS and and how Singapore is helping in terms of structuring those entities, in terms of other benefits in the ecosystem, and actually creating your global headquarter in Singapore. So today it's my pleasure to invite Estina. She is the regional director EDB for Southeast Asia and UAE, I think Middle East, if I'm correct. And she will talk about the opportunities which Singapore as a country brings in for Indian business owners and founders. And then I also have Soumik from my team. He will talk about specifically focusing on SaaS and deep tech startups and businesses in terms of what opportunities they have and how you can actually create your global headquarter in Singapore for your SaaS business, and also the tax and structuring issues around it, and discuss those things. So without further delay, let me introduce Estina. And Estina, over to you. Thanks for coming in and taking out time. I know you're traveling so much, so thanks for taking out time today for this very important masterclass.
Thank you, Alok, for the introduction. Maybe you could help me pull up the slides and then I could run
Yeah,
everyone through some of the
yeah.
information on Singapore and our business environment. But before we do so, maybe I'll just do a quick introduction. So my name is Estina. I'm from Singapore. So the Singapore Economic Development Board, EDB for short, is a government agency that is under the Ministry of Trade and Industry. So our primary role involves industry building and also investment promotion. Um, yeah, let's put up the slides first.
Am I
Yes.
visible? Is
Yes,
my slides visible? Yeah, thank you.
thank you. Okay, next, please.
Yeah,
Next.
yeah.
Yeah, so this is where the EDB sits under the Ministry of Trade and Industry. You can see there's a couple of other sister agencies that we work very closely with. I would like just to point out, because this webinar is focused on deep tech, AI, and tech companies. So maybe the Agency for Science, Technology, and Research, A*STAR, which is just next to the EDB, bottom right, would be an agency that we work very closely with for anything tech related, deep tech related. Next. So the EDB is the lead agency that plans and executes economic and industrial development strategies for Singapore. So we are responsible for more than 30% of Singapore's annual GDP. And what we do actually, we facilitate investments from overseas, and we work with companies across the world to explore how Singapore could be relevant for them. So through that, we try to create good jobs for Singaporeans. We try to sustain economic growth for Singapore, and also try to grow the business environment so that it's welcoming for everyone who's intending to use Singapore as a hub for business. Next. So I wouldn't dive too long into this economic transformation of Singapore, but as you can see, over the years, Singapore has actually transformed a lot over the past few decades. So from one that is from an economy that was very labor intensive, to one that was focused on technology and services, and right now, we are in a knowledge economy point in time, and we are also currently still changing and growing as we move along. So I think this might be some sort of surprise for a lot of us because a lot of people, they associate Singapore's economy with mostly, professional services, but actually manufacturing actually comprises around 20% of our GDP. And we are exceptionally strong in areas like, our biomedical sciences, especially our pharmaceuticals, areas like chemicals, electronics, precision engineering, aerospace. Singapore is one of the largest MRO hubs in the world, transport engineering, and also general manufacturing. So although manufacturing plays a huge role to our GDP, we have quite a diverse mix of other industries contributing to Singapore's GDP as well. And I think for the purpose of this conversation, the digital economy is also one that is significant for us. We have also noted that most of the top Fortune 500 MNCs, APAC HQs are also in Singapore. Next. So this is a snapshot of Singapore's, different strengths. And of course, as we pride ourselves as a global business city, we are, ranked one in many different areas, like for example, supply chain and connectivity, and digital infrastructure. And yeah, I spoke about aerospace, healthcare, electronics, and energy just now. So many people also would be surprised to know that we actually account for about 11% of the global semicon market. And a lot of the top, global semicon equipment are actually manufactured in Singapore, making us, one of the highest, export for high-tech products out of Singapore. So I think for this meeting, this webinar, we would like to shine the spotlight on what makes Singapore so suitable for your business, and how can we make that change for you, being the hub to Southeast Asia. So I think geographically, we are in the center of and we are actually in close proximity to most of the Southeast Asian countries. So if you're thinking of a Southeast Asian strategy, you're thinking of an APEC strategy, Singapore is a great place to be physically because of just access to the different countries in the region. As you can see, within a 3-hour, 4-hour flight radius, even 7-hour flight radius, you can access most of the countries in the APEC region. And also, I would like to direct your attention to the Southeast Asian digital economy. We all know that India is growing at an amazing pace, but I think coming close behind India is Southeast Asia. So if your business is thinking of going overseas, looking at a new market other than India, no better place to explore than Southeast Asia. So these are just two examples of companies that have used Singapore as a springboard to the region. I mean, everyone is familiar with TVS and Imobi. I wouldn't delve too much on this, but I would just like to say that a lot of steps for internationalization start small. The EDB is committed to partner with companies with the ambition to explore Singapore, and every journey and every partnership is very bespoke. So it really depends on the company's interest, the company's ambition, and the EDB and TMG can partner with you to take it from there. Next. Yes, so I think particularly on the innovation landscape, there's a few ways that EDB partners with companies, to create new products, create new business models out from Singapore to service the world and the wider markets outside of Singapore. So we do have a very vibrant startup ecosystem. So we have more than 4,000, 5,000 technology startups based in Singapore, and we also have a huge pool of VCs, PEs, people looking to invest in new businesses. And also with that, we have a very strong incubator and accelerator ecosystem. So this helps, to create more growth, more vibrancy in the startup ecosystem. And along with that, we also have very connected innovation alliances, with partners, with launch pads, with certain academies to help, help to bring a lot of these ideas to life. And in addition, I would like to share that our public sector is particularly involved in trying to sustain innovations in research and innovation enterprises. We've also set aside 25 billion from 2021 to 2025, and also additional 3 billion announced in just last year to fuel more work into innovation and to sustain strong private public partnerships. So we actually do have a lot of research scientists and engineers based in Singapore, more than 35,000 of them. And also they work in very diverse science and tech capabilities, in NUS, NTU, and even A-STAR. So which is what I shared earlier in one of the earlier slides on the agency, science, tech, and research. So, partnering with the EDB, we can help to facilitate introductions, connections with a lot of these research infrastructure and facilities that could be beneficial for you as you think about, developing more products, more high-tech products, out of Singapore. Yeah, so this is just a snapshot on our innovation ecosystem. So really what we covered earlier on the higher learning and research institutes, to even venture capitalists and accelerators and even innovation-ready corporates. So this is something that we are also seeing a trend in Singapore where a lot of corporates are actually looking at, doing more innovation-led work, doing more spin-outs, doing more partnerships with startups. And because the EDB also works very closely with a lot of these MNCs based in Singapore, so this is also something that we can help to facilitate. So I think next on the digital ecosystem, I would just like to share maybe a few key points on what makes Singapore special. So I think number one, it would really be our innovation hub and presence, where we have more than 1,000 AI startups, a lot of R&D teams located in Singapore. So there are also a lot of different global R&D labs, operating out of Singapore, just to tap on Singapore's talent and number of researchers, AI practitioners, and things like that. We also have a lot of digital training and reskilling programs that is in partnership with both the government and the private sector. So these are some of the areas that we can explore, if you're interested to tap on some of these talent pools. So next would really be on the availability of different types of partnerships in Singapore. So I think to help the ecosystems to grow, we actually do have a lot of different innovation partnerships, and even in this includes partnerships between industry, the labs, academia. There are many different types. For example, the Grab NUS AI Lab will be one. And next, I think would be on the digital infrastructure. So 50% of Southeast Asia's data center capacity actually comes from Singapore. And we do have one of the best connectivities in APAC globally. So one more thing is that we are also home to, one of the largest Southeast Asia LLM models called the Sea Lion. So Singapore is actually developing them. So the Sea Lions are actually a LLM that is operable in many different Southeast Asian languages. So that could be more customized and more contextualized for you if you intend to, build an AI product that addresses the different Southeast Asian countries. So I will just leave this. I will put this up on the chat later, and I'll share this document. So this is actually an overview of some of the resources that you can access through the EDB website. It's a good starting point on how you can get a business registered, how you can start a business, how you can grow your team in Singapore. And so if you need more information, we'll be happy to connect after this call, and so to direct you to the relevant teams and resources that EDB can help offer. Thank you.
Thanks, Estina. That was very insightful. And I think, Soumik, if you can just wait for 10 seconds, there are a couple of points, interesting points, which I need to make. So, thanks for this. And I was just going through some interesting data point in terms of what Singapore is offering for SaaS businesses and deep tech businesses. And we at Taxmantra Global, we help businesses in going global in terms of setting up, structuring, helping them to structure their IP structure, their holding subsidiary, taxation, compliance in different countries. But just coming back to this point, so I was just reading a report, and Estina, this is very interesting. I think you would also be amazed by this, that there are almost 454 SaaS companies which are operating in Singapore as we speak, and they are generating almost $8 billion of annual revenue. Uh, and they have already raised close to more than 5 billion of funding. And the most interesting part is that most of these businesses are now treating Singapore as their global headquarter, as they render services globally from Singapore. And you rightly pointed out about the ecosystem, about ease of doing business, about a lot of partnerships with institutes, with colleges, with universities, the grants which your government is giving, and the complete ecosystem which we call about in Southeast Asia is something which is mind-blogging. Uh, and also on the deep tech AI, because that's the buzzword at this point of time. I was just reading somewhere that EDB, it was EDB, wherein I just read somewhere that Singapore has just committed $440 million in Singapore startup Singapore equity co-investment scheme, I think, which is by EDB, if I'm not wrong. And now Singapore, as we speak, in the latest ranking, they rank fourth for deep tech and for SaaS and AI businesses globally, just behind US, UK, and Israel. Uh, and also, from AI perspective, I think Singapore has they had released, they were among the few earlier countries to have created a governance framework for AI. And I think they have released and extended a model called Model AI Governance Framework, which was earlier released in 2024, which talks about how globally businesses needs to work on the mandatory compliance and disclosure using AI model from a governance risk. So, what I feel is that today Singapore is where a lot of Indian origin founders are parking their IP. They're raising global equity for global deep tech plays which they want to play because of the rule of law which you get in Singapore, because of global strong treaties and very clear AI and data governance signals. In addition to what Estina has already talked about, the larger ecosystem and grants and the opportunities. Estina, you want to add anything on this? What I just spoke? Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks a lot, for just shining the spotlight on some of these things that have been ongoing in Singapore. I think, as Singapore, as the world changes, a lot of these new technologies are emerging. Singapore as a country has to make itself, more business friendly, and more welcoming for different types of businesses. So particularly on the 450 SaaS companies in Singapore, actually that is no surprise because of, the presence of so many top Fortune 500 MNCs whose APAC HQ is based in Singapore. So I mean, I imagine that as a SaaS founder, if you want to target some of your big companies to onboard your product, or there's no better place other than Singapore because that's really the concentration of all the important MNCs whose APAC HQs are. So, and next, I think on the availability of capital, we do have this fund called the Singapore SG Growth Capital, so SGGC. The ADBI was, used to be like our investment arm, and since then they have since merged with Seeds Capital, which is from Enterprise Singapore, and together they actually form a team, that handles capital and are looking to invest in, companies that contribute to Singapore's economic fabric and which companies have a very clear Singapore mandate. So I think if any, I can share some of this information, to you guys, if anyone is keen on learning more about SGGC. And lastly, I think on AI, Singapore has a national AI strategy, 2.0 actually. We're in our second iteration of our AI strategy. And you're right, Alok, you pointed out, the governance framework and things like that. And I also wanted to point out, our AI strategy also covers, talent development. I think talent is something that's very critical. If a company is looking to, go into the AI space, talent is something that you really need. And I think Singapore is the home to a lot of these globally competitive AI talent that you might not be able to access otherwise. So another part is on the GPUs, computational power, another thing that's important for AI strategy. So Singapore is also investing very heavily in GPUs. Yeah, so I think all these different aspects actually made up our AI strategy, which again, we are also iterating, down the line. Yeah, so I think I'm happy to share more in detail, to anyone who's interested to find out more about, the capital landscape, AI strategy, and also on general, business environment and doing business in Singapore. Yeah.
Thanks, Christina. That was very comprehensive, insightful. Now I hand over to Soumik. Soumik is part of the leadership team at Taxmantra Global, and he heads the Singapore desk. In fact, at Taxmantra Global, in last 8 years, we have helped close to 200 companies from India to go and set up in Singapore. And we work with many of the very known, popular, large name, including some of the large unicorns, and we provide full-fledged services in Singapore India corridor. So Soumik will talk about specifics on the SaaS companies and businesses and the stack structure. And over to you, Soumik.
Thanks, Alok. Is my screen visible?
Yes, you can do a full screen. Then
Sure.
yeah, but it's visible. Yeah.
Right, I'm doing it right away. Uh, are you able to see my screen in
Yeah.
full scale?
Yeah.
Great,
Perfect.
awesome.
Yeah. Ready to go. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Estina, for the lovely introduction on the overall scheme of things in IT business, deep tech business, SaaS business, tech business in Singapore. Uh, in this webinar, ladies and gentlemen, what I will try to do is to keep things practical, right? I want to keep it very practical. What really happens in Singapore, how SaaS evolves in Singapore, how SaaS business uh, in an overall scheme of things takes place. And I want to walk you through why Singapore has become such a powerful base for Indian SaaS founders. More importantly, I will try to highlight how we can actually execute lot of things in Singapore that that are quite a few headaches in India, and how Singapore is trying to resolve them. At TMG, we work with several SaaS companies. In fact, I will talk about an example through a case study that how when you actually go to Singapore, what is the real impact on your top line and bottom line, and what exactly the issues got resolved when they actually went to Singapore. A quick interesting fact for everyone, for the viewers to start upon: Singapore has been ranked globally for quite a few years number one for startup talent concentration, and I believe last year too this has been the same case. So the ecosystem that you will be shaping as a SaaS founder will be world class, right? So let us first understand what is SaaS. Overall business is a software as a service. Is a cloud-based model where software is delivered over the internet on subscription basis. It has several features, some of which is cloud hosted subscription model. It doesn't have any installation. It's a very scalable and effective way to move forward your tech business. Now, we must understand why Singapore is getting so excited, why Indian entrepreneurs have been moving to Singapore. As Alok has said, more than 450 companies in the last few years have moved there, some sort of office in Singapore, and I dare say many of them are our clients. So if we see what are the benefit of Singapore on an overall basis over here, right? Uh, First, it opens the door to global enterprise buying instantly. So there are global HQs, right, for several companies. So if you're a B2B SaaS player, it becomes a very lucrative opportunity to move your business or rather have an office in Singapore. Second, conversions improved because clients trust an SG entity vis-a-vis many other countries. So an SG entity gives a lot more trust, and hence many international contracts are signed with global players. It's needless to say the tax environment. It's a stable, compliance load is simpler, lighter, and investors are extremely comfortable with SG structures, right? And lastly, if we can find a very interesting fact, right? It's a global powerhouse for VC funds. If many of the star SaaS companies, and I will talk to you in the structuring model, which I will come at a later part of the slides, how it's interesting, how it's important. Many VC companies have their HQs in Singapore, so over there it helps a lot, right? An interesting fact: 62% by a research of Indian SaaS unicorns have some offices in either in Singapore or a US entity, and that's the reason that it has become such a bit powerhouse, right? Now, next, let's come to the challenges. Now, as I said, I will try to make it a bit more practical, what actually happens rather than on theoretical basis, right? Common challenges faced by SaaS founders, right? Whenever someone has to go globally, they always keep on saying, where should we have the revenue, right? And how do we make sure the transfer pricing issues get resolved? In India, there are a lot of problems when you make a payment globally, right? When you go in Singapore, will the payment issue persist? So say for example, when in India, if you have to make any international payment, it's a headache. You have to take 15 CACB, you have to get those permissions, you have to inform the bank will send you a checklist, sometimes they will ask you for the contracts. In Singapore, that's not the case. I also been often asked that when I expand globally, will there be any impact on my GST? Because again, in India, if I say that the GST refund is a big of a issue. The government is trying to resolve it, but still there are issues. And I've been asked that when you operate overseas, especially Singapore, is the cross-border GST issues will be there. And again, there are cross-border challenges in regards to compliances to jurisdiction. Is there any tax treaty between India and Singapore, right? So that's something that one should be worried about and query, and I get a lot of questions in and around it, right? And needless to say, for tax errors there are impacts, right? There are impacts on EBITDA, there are impacts on the top line, and hence it is very important to channelize this. And over here I want to highlight how Singapore solves these challenges. We talked about several issues over here in regards to the GST, the corporate taxes, ease of doing business, and Singapore hits where it matters. The beauty of Singapore, to be very frank and honest, is clarity. You get a clarity and transparency from day one. There are no complexities while you run the business. You do not get sudden notices while you do the business. When you make an international payment, and this is has been the best part of the entire thing, that when you have an international payment done, is far more easier. You do not have to take a permission. You just have, with a click of a button, you can make the transfer. Periodically the bank may ask you for contracts, but that's it. You do not have to go to and rush to a chartered accountant to get those 15 CACB and stuff everywhere, right? Again, it's predictable, it's clear, and the rules are much more simple. And again, you get another credibility boost, especially when you deal with US, EU, APAC countries. When you deal with these clients, they are far more flexible, they trust you when they have the Singapore office. So, and that on an overall basis gives it very much advantages. Of course, the tax rate is lower. I do not have to say this once more. It's from 4.8%. Again, it was reduced last year for a 50% rate cut, but from 4.8% to a maximum of 17%. In many countries, it's around 21 to 30% till now. And Singapore, because it has tax treaties including India, you can easily avoid the double taxation over here, right? So overall, that's how Singapore is helping SaaS companies, especially in resolving the issues from the revenue side of things, from the compliance side of things, from the ease of doing business out of things. In all the three aspects, especially for SaaS companies, it is helping over here. And one more important thing that for the last 1 year, I'm getting, because of the currency fluctuation, when companies pay, right? In Singapore, you can have a multi-currency account very easily, right? Unlike many geographies where multi-currency account might be a bit difficult, you can have a multi-currency account, you can have a US dollar account over there. So it becomes very easy to run a business. You can avoid the currency risk on currency fluctuations, and then this, on an overall basis, it helps. Now you might wonder, what are the structures? Do I need to always have a holding company in Singapore? The answer to that is no. Yes, Singapore holding company and Indian operating company is the most common stuff, especially when you want to raise funds. But it's not the always stuff, right? I am helping few listed companies in setting their base in Singapore. They have their HQs in India. There are all listed entities, right? And what they do is that they have the Singapore office is almost their global revenue center, and Indian entity becomes a delivery center. right? There are models wherein you can also have a Singapore holding company, Indian operating company, but the global IP in Singapore sits in Singapore. It is because the IP laws in Singapore is very strong, and you can get lot of value when you raise funds at a later point of time. So global IP sits in Singapore. That can be one more model. You do not have to always have a Singapore holdco. You can always have different model structures over here. In fact, the reason Singapore becomes the holding company is because, yeah, as per the band SaaS report, over 70% of newly funded Indian SaaS startups have moved their holdco in Singapore because of the fund raising benefits over there. Now, I was thinking when I was preparing these slides, right? What are the common mistakes that founders make when they expand globally? And these are very important part over here. They do not know that what is the entity structure they should go. Is it will they choose the holding entity, subsidiary entity, branch office? What exactly they should do? They skip the transfer pricing documentation. Absolutely. So for the uninitiated, the transfer pricing is simply that if there are transaction between related party, that is, you have a Singapore entity, you also have an Indian entity, B or B not B, it might not be subsidiary, you own both the entities and there are transactions, you have to follow transfer pricing guidelines while doing the transaction. So that you have to be very careful about. And this is not only on Singapore, anywhere in the world you do an international transaction between the related party, that helps a lot when you have a transfer pricing document at hand, right? Again, mixing promoters income with the company's income. So when someone says that I earn that money, what should be the best way forward in repatriating the money? That is something one should be careful about. And there are clarity on where to book revenues. That is very important for everyone to understand, because in India the transfer pricing penalties can rise up to 200% of tax under reported. Now, how to define that? You have to look into your books properly and define it over there, right? Now, if the other points over here is in regards to repatriation. Another common point that people ask, that of course I have my Singapore entity, I have my branch office, I have my international entities set up. How should I repatriate the money back over here? It might be through dividend, it might be through royalty, it might be to management fees or buyback or a mixture of everything. But before you do, you must always have an opportunity on how to create the tax efficient model. So it might be mixture, it must be plus and minus. You have to see the double taxation avoidance agreement between the two countries and then channelize it, and that helps it overall. And there are FEMA and RBI alignment that has to happen, right? So you must do it properly before you move forward. What how we help over here is what I will come a bit later. Let us first understand how emerging businesses, when they go to Singapore, how it helps, right? So we have done it for a recent client of ours, right? The company is an early stage IT SaaS provider. When they came to us, it has a main pain problem was the taxes were high, and they had low trust from the global buyers because they are based in India. When they are getting the global contracts, they had a bit of a issue. What we did was we looked into their books and we tried to change the entire scenario. We made sure that the Singapore, we form a Singapore holding company. We made sure that there's a clean revenue slip between through the TP policy. The IP was shifted to Singapore, and the global, because of the global tax reforms, it was very easily we could do the tax optimization. And of course the RBA and cross-border compliance, we took care of it. what happened over a period of time, and when we spoke to the founders after 2 years, right, we found that there were 27% increase in the enterprise win rate due to the credibility. The conversion rate increased, and the tax saving, because we could channelize the both the GST as well as the corporate tax. There was a 15 to 18% tax savings over here. So this is something that was quite revealing for us, and that is how we are trying to win the entire system altogether. At TMG, what we believe in, we provide a comprehensive platform to the company. So they know from day one itself that when is the Singapore annual tax is there, when is corporate tax is there. We do not do only Singapore, we do India and Singapore. So all your RBI, FEMA, all your transfer pricing issues are all resolved. And this is very important, because what happens is when you expand in overseas and you do not do the FEMA compliance, RBI compliance, you end up paying close to 300% penalties. So this is something that one should be careful about. So Alok, I just want you to I want you to invite you to understand the facets that you think is important for SaaS companies, and if you can also talk about our offer that we plan to do it from this month onwards.
Okay, so I think you can unshare the document now. And thanks, Soumik, for very insightful, practical points which are very important for Indian founders who are going to set up in Singapore. There is one point which is very, very important for SaaS companies, which I was talking to someone, and in SaaS businesses, you tend to get money or your monthly subscription on a recurring basis, and it's an automate recurring payments which comes in, right? So if you have a SaaS business and someone subscribes to your product or services, that there is a monthly subscription which comes in. Now, because of the central bank in India, because they had put two-factor verification and there were some challenges, most of the uh, uh, Indian SaaS companies were not able to recover the payments on monthly basis because of that, and there was always a payment default and payment failure from their global customers. And it has become a big challenge, and I hope the government is trying to resolve that. So SaaS companies can really take that benefit when they are going where they are going to other jurisdictions, including Singapore, for that as a solution. In fact, in last offline meetup when we were talking about Estina, if you remember, there were a lot of questions on these areas. So so as I said that the idea is that how do we create a long and strong corridor between India and Singapore, and that's what we are already creating. And as soon as and Singapore government as such is really helping us in that. It's a reality that Singapore is a shining star in when we talk about a country wherein you can go and open your company and do business and scale globally, and actually create your HQ for global businesses. So as a firm at Taxmantra Global, we always tend to help businesses and hyper growth founders in achieving what they want to achieve in terms of their business activities. And as Soumik was talking about, we as a firm, we always believe that we can create more value. So we are running some annual offers which Soumik can talk about if someone is interested to go and set up in Singapore, or if they have some issues on GST or compliances or anything. We can help them, and there are some year-end offers, so you can also take benefit of those offers when you talk to Soumik. We will also and we will also put our contact details for TMG. If you go to the last slide for the contact details, Soumik, we can the audience can actually, as of now, I see that there are close to 300 people who have actually viewed our live LinkedIn session as we're talking about. Just go to the last slide wherein we have our contact details, so that anyone who want
I
to
am doing so. It's taking some time. Just give me a second.
yeah. I think it got stuck. Yeah, so just put a full screen to this. So this is the email ID, this is the mobile number. We have a toll-free number also. If someone needs any support whatsoever, we will able to help you on that part, and contact us if you are interested to expand into Singapore, or if you already have a company there and you need any support, we will be more than happy to support you. So with this, we conclude today's session, and thanks, Estina, for coming in and giving us so much of insightful points with respect to Singapore as a country. And thanks, Soumik, for presenting the practical aspects of SaaS and deep tech companies in terms of what benefits they have and the cross-border structuring per se. Thanks, everyone, and thanks everyone for joining in. We will come back soon with more masterclass.